What is the best comeback that works against all insults? Story 1. Earnestly ask them if they're okay. Too long didn't read? Being in the trades gets you some good practice in comebacks. I'm an electrical apprentice, and when I first started, there was a bit of hazing and teasing from the journeymen. It never got too bad, mostly a lot of talk. One in particular was kind of on me one day, and since he was fairly young, just recently licensed, I just responded with, "Did someone treat you like this when you were an apprentice? Do you have some unresolved issues? Do you need a hug?" Oddly, he never really responded, but I didn't have any trouble with him anymore. On the same job, the excavator accidentally broke our grounding grid, a big underground copper cable grid used to ground all the structures in the substation. So I had to jump down in the rain into the hole to patch it up. It was wet and muddy, but I was wearing a full rain suit. Another older journeyman who was my foreman and had worked for my father more than once made a sarcastic remark along the lines of, "We should take a picture. Wouldn't your daddy be proud?" I just looked up at him and said, "Well, I'm doing my job, I'm doing it well, and I'm not whining and complaining about it. Yeah, he likely would be proud." I also had another apprentice yell at me, "Stop talking to me like I'm a fracking moron." To which I responded, "Stop talking to me like you're a fracking moron." I did kind of provoke him, but he was being really dense. These are all perfect retorts that I could only come up with in the shower the next day. Pro tip: coming up with clever comebacks way after the time you need them is not such a major problem if you choose to work or live in an environment where you get insulted and abused frequently. You can just use them for the next time. I was about to make a bragging comment about having a quick wit for things like this, but now I'm thinking I'm just smeg and at an awful lot of things. Enough so that I've had to get good at handling hecklers. Ah, the immortal French staircase wit. I have a new confidence knowing I have this in my back pocket. Thank you. Yep, working in a mechanic shop got me exposed to constant smeg talking, 95% of it in the intimacy-oriented genre, or gender-oriented genre. I didn't learn much there other than to have a thick skin. I play hockey, and locker rooms can get fun with all sorts of trash talk flying around. My favorite was actually directed at me. I had a headache and nausea, turns out from a concussion in our previous game, and my teammate looked at me and said, "I got a straw in my car." Confused, I say, "A straw?" And mate replies with, "Yeah, so you can suck it the frack up and play." Hilariously brutal roast and all in good fun. Well, again, you gotta get a thick skin on some of this. There's a lot of stuff you can brush off, but I do like that reaction of just not going the way you expect them to go and just be serious and who hurt you, basically. That's pretty good. Story 2. I like this one, actually. I feel like it's the least argumentative comeback here. Deflecting people or responding with a witty thing can just rile them up. Source: Psycho Family. As they take it the same way as being ignored. This one gives a sort of illusion that you accept what they've said and have already moved on from it. Like, I heard what you said, I've taken it in, and I let it go, before the bully really has a chance to process it themselves. I feel like there's still room for reconciliation after this response. It's important to remember the other person in these situations. Not because we should be empathetic towards their abusive choices, but because we should be empathetic towards their lead-up emotions. My 5-year-old says mean things sometimes because he hasn't practiced patience and understanding enough. He's learned how to properly react, but he's not mature enough to utilize it properly every time he gets worked up. This is not unexpected of a 5-year-old. A lot of people much older than 5 also are similarly emotionally immature. My husband doesn't have much practice with patience before he met me. 10 years later, and he's all mellowed out. I'm not perfect, of course, but I'm confident in my ability to stay cool in the face of craziness, which helps me remember to think of the other person. When my husband used to get irrationally upset about tiny things and then redirect that upsetness at me, I always considered that he may literally never have had the chance to learn these things before meeting me. He was, emotionally, a 5-year-old. I can't expect greatness until he's had the opportunity to learn how to be great in the first place. Although, I don't put myself through abuse for the sake of another person's learning experience. If I ever feel unsafe or uncomfortable in an abusive situation, I just leave. That's with my 5-year-old and my husband. I always tell my son, you've got a little body, but huge emotions, so sometimes they spill out a little bit. I don't want you to hurt me and regret it later. As soon as you're done letting those emotions out, I'll come in and hug you. Just yell for me. Then he screams into his pillow or destroys some Lego structures and calls me in to comfort him when he doesn't feel like those emotions are spilling out as much. At the end of his angry outbursts, he always cries in regret for having been angry in the first place. That vulnerability point is where we practice coping mechanisms for his anger. I saw similar emotions in my husband 10 years ago, albeit less obvious. Angry adults are internally little 5-year-olds whose emotions are spilling over, and they're scared. Not an excuse, but a shining light onto the anger process in their brains. Not sure where this rant came from today, but here it is. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. He never permanently destroys anything nor harms himself during this. We practice together as far as destroying the Legos. Really interesting reaction. I mean, I'm sure a lot of mothers have to deal with both their husbands and their kids' emotional outbursts, but I'm wondering if this person has some sort of psychology major or social work experience or something, because it's really deep. I actually learned a few things with that. Story 3. The no reaction is the best reaction. I don't even entertain trash talkers, and if anything, let them have their moment, as it gives a decent perspective as to where their heads are at. I moved into a new neighborhood a few years back and have no idea what I did to get on one of my neighbor's bad sides. I've moved every 18 months of my life since birth and lived all over the world, and it wasn't until almost 40 that I came across the most vile and disturbed neighbor I've ever had. Shortly after moving in, I got invited to a little get-together, and dude was projecting for almost an hour straight, giggling and laughing his butt off the whole time, trying to get a rise out of me. He had spent some time looking me up online and was boasting about things he had found. I'm a former celebrity overseas, and my life is an open book, and have had a few stalkers in the past. This guy took the prize for the most obsessed and weirdest interaction I've ever had when first meeting someone, let alone a new neighbor. Thanks to them, I cleaned up my online presence, as I'm no longer famous, was a long time ago, and don't bother with people younger than me. We would have neighborhood watch meetings, and the guy or his boyfriend would make snide remarks about my son's attire. I never gave them the time of day, and everyone could see them festering from the weird obsession with being so negative. I'm a pretty self-aware dude and know if I'm committing a social faux pas. This dude apparently isn't. Let them keep talking without engaging, and it will speak volumes about them versus whatever it is they're accusing or bullying you for. Fracking weirdos. Yeah, I had an encounter on a flight recently where some women behind me were making fun of me and filming me to post online. I guess they were looking for one of those freak-out moments to post online and go viral, because they kept indirectly saying things about me, hoping I would overhear and react while the camera was rolling. Once I overheard what was going on, I stopped moving or doing literally anything, and they whined the rest of the flight about having to delete the video because it was useless. I think they still posted something, but I won't put any effort to find it. I was angry about getting off the plane, but I later felt satisfied that I don't let that kind of behavior get to me. My dad said when I was really young and had my first instance of bullying, just ignore them. Sounded ridiculous at the time, 100% correct now. That you have to develop some patience. And like we heard from the previous ones, sometimes there has to be some sort of acknowledgement that they're not expecting. Maybe there are times where you can just ignore them and move on. That requires some patience on your part. And I don't know, what do you think? Is it better to ignore or just to try a strategy that sort of acknowledges and lets it go? What do you think? Story 4. Big fan of the pause for a beat, deadpan, and then some variation combo of, you done? Feel better now? Got that out of your system? Just that pause and a little bit of patronizing tone while dismissing the childlike behavior usually does more to the ego than a counter insult. I'm a woman, and my job basically boils down to arguing with attorneys who are mostly men with huge egos and a large helping of disdain for people they deem beneath them. It's common for them to get pushy, loud, and insulting when they're not getting their way. That was intimidating at first, but now I look forward to it because it gives me an opportunity to use my favorite line. It sounds like you're getting a little emotional about this. Do you want to call me back when you've calmed down so we can get this done? This is always met with a delicious pause, following by them either hanging up or launching into the most high-pitched screeching you've ever heard. Being called emotional by a woman who is perfectly calm breaks something in them, and it's my favorite thing. As a dude, I wholly endorse women using all the trash they've had to take for being emotional against hysterical dudes pounding on tables like the biggest gorilla gets to win in the office. Nothing quite like someone you've seen turn purple, freaking out about the gays and Mexicans tell you someone got emotional because she's a chick. Okay, bud, and what's your excuse? What do you mean I'm emotional? Well, buddy, you're visibly vibrating with fury, and everyone in this room is wearing a sheen of your rage spittle because you've lost control of yourself so badly that your own bodily fluids are trying to jump ship. Story 5. Stop bullying me. You're gonna make me climax. My friend says the best way to get a bully to leave is to call them daddy. But when he tried it, the person bullying them started going faster. Daddy, chill. Tangentially, I had a friend get out of a potential bar fight by flipping out and saying, "Why do you want to see my nuts so bad?" The drunk guy trying to pick a fight was still ready to throw punches, so my friend unzipped his fly, hung one nut out, and said, "There, are you happy? Can I leave now?" The drunk guy just stood there confused as my friend walked off. You gotta get crazy. Once a homeless man walked up to me and my ex and was screaming, "Shrew! Shrew! Shrew! Shrew!" I watched my then boyfriend sink into his seat on the bench as my instinct was to stand up and start scream dancing along with the man approaching. Shrew! Slap! Shrew! Butt wiggle! Shrew! I don't know how, but it worked. He kind of veered away from us and walked right by. His screaming subsided to whispering, and my ex looked equally terrified and in awe. Story 6. My dad told me to respond to bullying by saying, "Sorry about your family situation," and walk away looking very sympathetic and sad. Like, you understand, and it's okay. I've caused a few breakdowns for sure. One of my main bullies got to me. There was a rumor going around that his dad was super abusive. He called me fat for the trillionth time, and I turned and said, "I see why your dad hits you now." Dude fracking freaked. Oh, I'm a girl, so he didn't beat me up. Hope he's doing better. Still kind of feel bad for snapping in that way. No one deserves to be beaten by a parent. That's horrible for that kid. But for some reason, I can't stop laughing at how you spelled rumor. In my script, it's spelled R-O-O-M-E-R. Are you talking about my mama? Starts swinging. My experience with using lines like this against bullies. Worse is when talking to admin staff at school, they say, "Well, you shouldn't have been talking about people's families." My school experience was not a good one. Your school administrators being buttholes aside, you should always be prepared to have to defend yourself after speaking on someone's mom as a general rule of thumb. That is a berserk button for many people. My grandfather was loading stuff at a freight terminal and the supervisor was giving him endless pointless grief. Granddad finally said, "What's the matter? You got trouble at home?" This shut the guy up and that was the end of it. Until one of the other people who worked there sidled up and said, How did you know? I've used it, and 2 out of 3 times their stepdad was abusing them and their mother had gotten cancer. Works well. This whole thing kind of reminds me of that Key and Peele skit where one of them is bullying the other in a high school setting, and the bully is just completely self-aware of his shortcomings and the abuse of his father just on a deep psychological level, and that kind of freaks the kid getting bullied out even more. If you haven't seen it, look it up. It's really funny.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 7. That sounds like something you would say. Damn, people are right about you. This one is personal. That's the one that makes them think about it later. I like the one the pizza guy says to Ryder in GTA. I feel sorry for your dad. A bit harsh, but does the job. One I use with my friends. At the risk of sounding like your father, I'm disappointed in you. Had a not-so-calm parting with a friend a few years ago. Best friend for 7 years. My last words were, I feel sorry for your mother having to deal with such an awful person. Of course you are. Of course you would. Of course you did. It takes them a while to detect the mockery. Or they never do. Of course they don't. Story 8. And? Basically takes all the wind out of their sails. They want to get a rise out of you, and responding like this doesn't give them the satisfaction. Okay also works pretty well. It has the same exact effect as and can even be paired together to form okay, and. In my personal opinion, this doesn't work that well. A short neutral response is often an invitation to continue the insults. At least, younger insulters don't stop. It mostly delays the further insults. Once in middle school, someone said, "That's why your tooth gap is so big." And I was too dumb to hear it as an insult, so I said, "Yeah, my mom won't let me get braces." And they were so confused by my response, they walked away. Story 9. Ozzy here. You guys are overthinking this. Let me help. Frack off, you runt. Ozzy here. Depending who you say this to, you might tick him off and have him going, "Oh, you want to go, eh? What you looking at, runt?" I don't rightly know, sir. But if it was a mirror, I would soon slay myself. My mother was a very well-mannered lady and would be 105 if she was still alive. She used to tell me that when she was young, if anyone aggressively said to her, "What are you looking at?" she would reply, "I don't know. The label must have dropped off." Very belittling. Then turn away mumbling about frackwits and addict heads. Frackin' junkies, the whole bloody lot. Story 10. I found out by just asking why and putting them in a position to explain their insult, which didn't have much thought behind it, works well. Why? Because your mom. Careful. You're evolving a new class of bullies who will do their homework and come prepared. I'm stupid? Why? Please find enclosed a study of your IQ tests, university exam results, and language analysis of your online comments. This study, peer-reviewed by fellow bullies, of course, constitutes strong evidence that you are, in fact, of lower than average intelligence. Now, as for your level of attractiveness. Story 11. Once I saw an Am I the Jerk post where a bride was jealous of a guest because she was too beautiful and stole her day, even if she was perfectly elegant, and she was insulting her. The bride told her, "So next time, can I come to your wedding in a wedding gown?" The guest replied, "I think it'll help." And I found that epic. I remember that post. So ducked up. Quack. Nah, that one was fracked up. Did you see the link posted to the dress? She literally wore a gown to someone else's wedding, and I think it wasn't just a guest. It was the groom's ex or something. Way over the line. Story 12. Anytime my mom would get called names or insulted, she'd shrug and just say, "Everybody's gotta be something." I always respond, "I've been called worse," and continue with my day. If I'm feeling smug, I'll add, "by better people." That pairs well with, "I've been called worse, and I'm disappointed you couldn't think of something better." This is no rant. It's a masterclass on how to be an excellent human being. Thank you. Story 13. You want me to come back? You'll have to wipe it off your mom's teeth. Jimmy Carr. Oh ho ho. Back when I was homeschooled, I got a job at around 16. I was only around super religious folk and wasn't versed in the real world at all. I somehow got into the situation where I said, I don't have a comeback, and one of the guys said, if I wanted my comeback, I'd tell you to spit. I was very confused and asked him to explain what he meant. He started to, then decided it wasn't worth it and said, never mind. I didn't realize what he meant until I went to public high school later. Story 14. The anti-comeback is my favorite. A light breeze has more effect on me than someone insulting or bullying me these days. I couldn't tell you what the last 5 or 10 people in my life that tried to publicly humiliate me even looked like. I never looked at them. What they were saying never made me miss a beat in whatever I was doing. They get so mad every time, trying to bait me a few times, and then eventually give up. Meanwhile, everyone around me can hear and see what's happening. There's only one person that everyone is witnessing making a butt of themselves, and it's not me. Story 15. Well, I guess what everyone says about you is true. My dad told me to say this, and the typical bully type would generally go crazy thinking everyone talks about them behind their back. My dad loves a variation on this. I don't care what everybody says about you. I think you're great. I've stood up for you a lot, you know. Only it was true. I'm just realizing it may have hurt their feelings, and I'm so very pleased. This is genius. Story 16. Bold words for a man in climax shot distance. You fracking Americans will use anything except the metric system. Bold moves for a man in a jizzy-wizzy space. Hits are different. Oh, the wibbly-wobbly dreamy-weemy gap? Are we fighting or fracking? Either way, I'm getting naked. Story 17. Yeah? Well, the jerk store called, and they're running out of you. What's the difference? You're their all-time bestseller. It's smart. It's a smart line, and a smart crowd will appreciate it. And I'm not going to dumb it down for some bonehead mass audience. Story 18. Stick your finger in your mouth/cheek and pull it forward and out so that it makes a popping noise. Like so. There aren't many people who wouldn't be speechless after witnessing that during a conversation/argument. Finger popping each other's buttholes. Story 19. Your mother should have eaten you while your bones were still soft. Edit. What the hell? This isn't even funny. Oh, what the hell? Your mom ate my bone while it was still soft. Okay, there it is. Story 20. Just laugh out loud. If someone's trying to make you mad, acting like nothing they've said matters to you in the least, and their best attempts at making you feel bad or laughable will really take the wind out of their sails. I've done it. It's immensely satisfying. Story 21. I don't get why that's funny. Can you explain it to me? As soon as they start talking, I was just kidding. I don't actually care what you think. Hit 'em with the old, it doesn't matter what you think, like The Rock used to do. Story 22. I once had someone say to me, man, they let you out for the day and this happens. And I had to laugh and just give them that one. Story 23. There was a female gamer doing a live stream, taking smeg from some butthole she just beat. Without a pause, she drops, I'm gonna smash your dad tonight and give birth to someone he actually loves. Story 24. Hold a stare and blank face for at least 3 seconds, and then ask in a concerning tone, are you okay? Story 25. Sorry, what did you say? So that they'll have to repeat themselves and usually take the mojo out of things. Story 26. First of all, brush your teeth. Or, okay, eyebrows. Is that from some movie or show? I've seen it referenced before online. Story 27. I hope you know that I'm just going to self-stimulate to this later. Yes, and ask them to say it again slower and in a huskier tone. Story 28. I bet that sounded a lot cooler in your head. Damn. Story 29. Well, that's just, like, your opinion, man. This aggression will not stand, man. Story 30. Your mother was a hamster, and your father smelled of elderberries. I fart in your general direction. Story 31. Just say, okay, and move on. People who insult want a reaction. Don't give it to them. Story 32. Up your butt and around the corner. Worked when I was 10. Story 33. I envy the people that don't know you.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.